The road trip had been planned for weeks, a solo adventure across the country to clear my head. By the time I arrived at the isolated Airbnb in rural Nebraska, the clock had already ticked past midnight. The GPS led me down a long dirt road flanked by cornfields, the house barely visible until my headlights caught it. A small, weathered one-story home. It wasn't much to look at, but I didn't care. I just needed a place to sleep before continuing my journey. The listing had been vague, limited photos, no key box, and instructions to find the spare under a rock near the door. It was odd, but I shrugged it off as part of the rural charm. Inside, the house was plain but clean. The bedroom was sparsely furnished. A twin bed, a wooden dresser, and an antique mirror. One thing stood out immediately. A small, waist-high door set into the wall, painted the same dull white as the rest of the room. It was too small to be a closet, but curiosity would have to wait. Exhausted, I tossed my bag on the floor and collapsed onto the bed. The first sound woke me just after 2 a.m., a soft, deliberate tapping. At first, I thought it was the wind, maybe a tree branch brushing the side of the house. But it wasn't random. 3 taps, a pause, then 3 more. I sat up, heart thudding, straining to hear over the silence. Then it came again. This time it was closer, inside the room. My eyes darted to the small door. It was closed, just as I'd left it, but the sound seemed to come from behind it. I got out of bed, every nerve in my body screaming to leave, but some twisted sense of curiosity kept me rooted. Slowly, I crept toward the door, the tapping now steady, relentless. My hand hovered over the handle when it stopped. Silence. Then, the creak of a floorboard behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, but the room was empty. My eyes flicked to the antique mirror, and for a split second I thought I saw something, a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. But when I turned, there was nothing there. That was it. I grabbed my bag, threw on my shoes, and bolted for the door. As I fumbled with the lock, I glanced out the window and froze. There was someone, something, standing in the yard behind the house. A tall, dark figure, motionless, watching. My hands trembled as I finally got the door open. I ran to my car, started the engine, and didn't look back until I was miles away. I messaged the Airbnb host as soon as I could, demanding an explanation, but I never got a response. The listing disappeared the next day. I still don't know who or what was in that house, but every now and then, when I'm alone at night, I hear that same soft tapping in my dreams, relentless and close. The Airbnb looked perfect online, a cozy apartment in a quiet Michigan complex, close enough to the host for any needed assistance. After arriving, I settled in easily, unpacking my things and admiring the soft glow of the city lights through the windows. It wasn't until I glanced outside that I noticed her. The older woman stood on the balcony of the neighboring unit, her piercing eyes locked onto me. She didn't move or acknowledge my polite wave. She just stared, her expression unreadable. Unnerved, I drew the curtains and chalked it up to harmless curiosity. That night, I woke to a loud, rhythmic pounding on my door. It was nearly 1 a.m. Half asleep, I stumbled toward the sound, pausing as unease washed over me. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing but the dimly lit hallway. My breath caught as the pounding resumed, louder and more insistent. I called out, "Who's there?" But the only answer was silence. I waited, heart racing before finally retreating to my bed. Sleep was impossible, every creak of the apartment magnified by my growing unease. The next morning, I opened the door to find a dead rat lying on the welcome mat. Its glassy eyes stared upward, its stiff body contorted unnaturally. I recoiled in horror, the bile rising in my throat. My first thought was to call the host, but something made me look toward the neighboring unit. She was there again, standing on her balcony, watching. Her mouth curled into a faint smile, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw her mouth something. Words meant only for me. The incidents escalated over the next 2 nights. More rats appeared, their bodies grotesque trophies left at my door. The door banging grew louder and more erratic. One night, I swore I heard her voice, a low, guttural chanting that sent chills down my spine. I finally snapped when she came to my door, shrieking incoherently. Her fist pounded against the wood, her voice climbing into an inhuman wail. I dialed 911 with trembling hands, barely able to relay the situation to the dispatcher. The police arrived within minutes, their presence a relief as I cowered in the corner of the apartment. Through the window, I watched as they approached her door. She greeted them with the same chilling smile, her words a jumbled mess of nonsense and fury. After what felt like an eternity, they led her away in handcuffs, her shrieking echoing into the night. One of the officers knocked on my door, explaining that she had been suffering from an untreated mental health condition and had become fixated on me as a target of her delusions. The host apologized profusely, offering a refund and relocation. I accepted, eager to leave, but the experience stayed with me. Even now, in quieter moments, I feel the weight of her stare, as though she's still watching me from some unseen corner of my memory. Some nights, I wake to the sound of pounding, and for a split second, I expect to see her there, smiling, waiting, unrelenting.